on time and end on time. So it being 1:30, that's starting on time. This is the Vision Zero Task Force, and we had thought that this might be the last meeting, but it's not. We're going to look at the framework today. We have one more meeting after this. Hopefully in December sometime. We'll give you that date later, or possibly as early as January. It's just important because we're passing this off to a committee that we do so thoroughly and effectively. We don't want to give them anything that's just partially complete. We want to have our hands all over it. So I want to thank you all for being here. Let's start with taking the roll.
Chair Foley.
Here.
Vice Chair Dewan.
Here.
Anthony Montez.
Here.
Gina LeBlanc.
Here.
Joe Glenn.
Here.
James Williams. Okay.
He's right, coming in right now.
John Risto.
Present.
Andrea Flores Shelton. Lieutenant Sherry.
Here.
Cupid Alexander.
Here.
Dolan Beckel.
Here.
Aston Green. Okay. I see that you were here. Thank you. So, Harry Freitas.
Here.
Nick Clay.
Here.
Jessica Bondoris. Candice Garcia.
Here.
And Michelle Wexler.
Here.
Great. 13. Great.
Looks like,
Yes, looks like we have a quorum.
thank you.
Yes.
Great, now we can do our work. The first thing that we always like to do at the Vision Zero Task Force is to center on the purpose of this task force, and that is to create zero fatalities on our streets. But we always like to acknowledge those who have passed since the reading of since our last committee meeting. And unfortunately, we have some names that we'll be reading right now. So I'll start, followed by the vice chair. Unnamed passenger. Unnamed motorcyclist. Unnamed bicyclist. Thomas Andrew Morey. Unnamed pedestrian. Long Pham. Nicholas Philip Kerrigan. Isaias Amari Ramos Berhan. Marcel Marie Allegria. Unnamed pedestrian. Unnamed bicyclist.
Tin Nguyen. Edward Kurt Sr. Unnamed motorcyclist. Paulina Kaori Verduzo Mendoza. Unnamed pedestrian. Unnamed motorist. Unnamed passenger. Sequin Liu. Letitia Lihazelma Korikula. Unnamed pedestrian. Unnamed pedestrian.
We start our meeting that way to really think about the people that we've lost in the last quarter, and to ponder that their families have lost them, the community has lost them. These are children, these are public safety officers, these are community members, these are moms, dads, people who are part of our community that are no longer with us because of death on our streets. And I will note that Long Pham was a community service officer with the police department, killed in the line of duty. And I will also note that Asias is an 11-year-old crossing a street, trying to follow his brother's home, very tragically, right before school started. So we always start that way because Vision Zero is a really important task force, and the work we do is really important. But sometimes it doesn't feel like we're doing enough, or that we're not doing it quickly enough. So as a task force, and the reason we're passing this off to a committee is that we'll be able to focus it as a staff much better than having to give reports to a task force that only has the opportunity to make suggestions and recommendations that then has to be acted on by the city council at a much later date. So the whole point of this work plan is to make it an effective work plan that staff then can take and run with and really make some, my goal, quick changes in our city to make our streets safer. Some of that is up to infrastructure. Some of that is up to changing the way people drive. And that's a harder thing because people just drive, to be really blunt, too damn fast. And if you're ever in the car with me, you'll hear me screaming at people who are driving too fast. They just don't understand, and they're reckless. And they're young, they're old, they're all ages, they're men, they're women, doesn't matter. They're all speeding, and it's all very dangerous. We know that a lot of these fatalities are a direct result of speeding. So I'm going to move forward. We have a lot to accomplish today. I will note that the minutes were posted, but we will not be voting on them at this meeting. They have to be posted within a certain amount of time, so we're not actually taking any action at this particular meeting. We'll take action at the next meeting. And again, we don't have that date. We thought we had a date, but we don't have the room, so we have to locate a new room for that. We will let you all know, and I hope you'll all be there for the final go of it. And truthfully, what should be a celebration of what we've done, but also a handing off and celebration of things going forward and how much more effective that we can be. With that, I was going to just go around the room and have those who are new to this introduce themselves, because I know we have some new people sitting in today. So why don't, actually, I'll take that back. Joe, why don't you start, because the new people don't know the people who've been around.
Okay. Thank you. Joe Glenn, I'm with ARP, community partner.
Thanks.
My name is Nick Clay. I'm the Director-in-Chief of the Emergency Medical Services Agency for the county.
My name is Anthony Montes. I'm the Associate Director of Advocacy and Development at the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition.
Cupid Alexander, Deputy Director of Housing for the City of San Jose.
Michelle Watson, Program Manager, Santa Clara County Public Health.
James Williams, Assistant Fire Chief.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Winsroth, and I'm the Vision Zero Manager at the San Jose Department of Transportation.
Lam Cruz, Division Manager over Traffic Safety for DOT.
And I'm Gina LeBlanc, an advocate, member of Families for Safe Streets.
Hello, Candice Garcia, Senior Analyst with the Medical Examiner Coroner's Office.
Good afternoon. Harry Freitas. I'm with the County's Roads and Airports Department.
John Risto, Director of Transportation, City of San Jose.
Lieutenant Sherry, San Jose Police Department, Traffic Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Dolan Beckel. I'm Chief of Staff for City Manager Jennifer McGuire and Interim Deputy City Manager for Transportation, Aviation, and Information Technology.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Bien Duan, District 7.
Hi, Dr. Jessica Bunderis, Associate Superintendent, SCCOE.
Go ahead.
Kyle Efferoni, staff for Councilmember Pam Foley.
By the way, he's the most important person in the room. He helps keep me on track and make sure my level is calm and not so anxious and ready and educate me on everything that I need to know. So he's fabulous, and many of you have worked with him and you know that. So why don't we get started with the reports? Jesse always starts with reports of what's going on, what we've seen, what are the current statistics. One thing I will remind you is that this is a task force, and it's been the policy of the task force not to have public comment until the end. We will have public comment after the presentation of the plan. And then again, at open forum, there'll be an opportunity there if time allows. So I just want you to be aware of when public comments will occur.
Thank you, Chair Foley. We just went around, and as you already know, my name is Jesse Mintz-Roth, and I'm the Vision Zero Manager at the San Jose Department of Transportation. I'm going to begin talking about traffic fatality trends in recent years. First, I want to acknowledge that when we review traffic fatality trend numbers, that they can feel very divorced from the actual people's lives they represent. They are our friends and neighbors in San Jose, and we are working here through this initiative and task force to try to reduce them. Looking at the 12 years shown on the left side of this slide, you can see the initial steep rise in traffic fatalities that prompted San Jose to adopt Vision Zero in 2015. The number of traffic fatalities peaked in 2022 at 65. Last year, in 2023, there was a 25% reduction to 49. That drop occurred across all modes of road users. The largest reductions were for cyclists and motor vehicle occupants. The big question in 2024 so far has been whether 2023 was an anomaly or the beginning of a new lower trend. On the right, you can see that so far in 2024, that 2024 has tracked very close to 2023. At the end of September 2024, there were 39 traffic fatalities in San Jose, slightly fewer than at the same point in 2023. As of yesterday, October 23, there were 44 traffic fatalities. We're presenting some new data slides showing cumulative traffic fatalities by month for pedestrians on the left and for bicyclists on the right. So far in 2024, cumulative pedestrian traffic fatalities are significantly down from 2023. Pedestrians are usually the largest group by mode each year, so this is encouraging to see. In 2024, however, cyclist fatalities are higher than usual, but they are still much lower than pedestrians. Looking at a more fine-grained look at the 39 traffic fatalities from January through September, 32 occurred on major roadways that have a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour or more. 19 of them were on priority safety corridors. 15 were pedestrians. 15 occurred in darkness, and 6 had speeding as a contributing factor. So now I'll continue to the presentation about the 2025 Vision Zero Action Plan. We're going to do a quick refresh of this.
Jesse, before you move into that,
yes,
we actually, if any of the committee members have questions about the data, please raise your hand, or we'll move on into the action plan presentation. Okay, let's move forward then. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're going to do a quick refresh of the slides that we presented to the task force on June 27th. We know that some of the people in the room are new task force members. So we have 5 priority action areas, and I'm going to read through them more on the next few slides. The first area is to prioritize equity and vulnerable road users. The images on the right side of this slide better explain equity for people who don't know its definition. Just to talk about the illustration on top right, there are 3 different sorts of people, and they're all given the same kind of box to stand on. And for the person on the right who's shorter and in a wheelchair, that person cannot see over the fence. but on the right side of the image, they're given a taller pedestal with a ramp that they can go up. And that's an example of building a different type of infrastructure in a place that needs it more. The San Jose Equity Atlas is shown below that, and that is one of the things that has been created in the last few years. In it, darker purple colors indicate higher equity scores. And so in this action plan, projects will be scored for equity using these metrics. The vulnerable road users include people experiencing homelessness and older adults, pedestrians, and cyclists who are overrepresented in traffic fatalities. Examples of some of the deliverables in this section include the Walk Safe San Jose Pedestrian Safety Plan, which focuses on making safety improvements for vulnerable road users. This plan includes valuable input from our Equity Steering Committee that was created for this plan. Some other things oh, wow, we're on the next slide. Okay. The second area is to center data analytics and report metrics. Our data work includes newer areas like post-project evaluations to understand how newly redesigned streets perform at reducing injuries. Improving and updating public-facing data dashboards is an area that received a lot of interest in our public comments, which I'll discuss more later. Precedent dashboards from San Francisco Vision Zero program are shown on the right as a type of way that we could display our progress in the future. Since we presented these slides in June, we have populated a lot of the numbers in the slides that were previously shown as X's or Y's. So for example, in this slide, the frequency of reporting key metrics is shown at twice per year. The third area is to strategize traffic enforcement. Delivering automated enforcement programs, such as the red light camera program and speed cameras, will be the major deliverables under this area in the next few years. Working on this legislative priority was an important deliverable in the last action plan that we're finishing now. We worked with other cities in California since 2017 to become one of 6 cities that's allowed to pilot them for up to 5 years. And delivering speed cameras is a really big program. They're a big undertaking that need a lot of resources, and we've even now secured a federal grant to fund the program. On October 29 next week, DOT will be going to City Council with the speed camera use policy and impact report for more information about that program. Engineering for safety is the fourth area. We do a lot of work under this area, such as slowing down vehicles, building street safety projects of many types, and redesigning the Vision Zero priority safety corridors. The 2025 action plan will include the updated priority safety corridor map that we presented to Council last year in 2023. It notably has twice as many street miles as the priority safety corridor map that was included in the 2020 action plan. One of the focus areas in this area is school safety, building proactive safety improvements around schools. There are also new initiatives like daylighting, which was recently passed by the State Assembly and means removing parking spots near crosswalks in order to increase vehicular visibility of people crossing or waiting to cross the street. And this slide includes a lot of numbers that have been populated for deliverables. And one of the new sections on it that we want to highlight is the section that's called Monitor Street Safety Bills. That is also one of the areas that received a number of comments. So both to list what new street safety bills have been passed and then also to talk about the city's progress on them. The fifth area is to engage the community and message safety. Last year we had the Slow Down San Jose campaign, and it generated a lot of good feedback and increased awareness around the prevalence of speeding on city streets. Our work in this area includes the Walk and Roll program, which provides street safety education to children ages 5 to 17 in K-12 schools, as well as traffic safety education to adults, older adults, and people experiencing homelessness. A forthcoming public information campaign to inform drivers about speed cameras will be funded by federal and regional grants. So after the June task force meeting, we had a public comment period through most of July and August. We received 35 comments from an online forum, and we also received a 15-page document co-signed by 16 people on the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition San Jose team. And that letter has been abridged and also sent to all of the task force members. We also received letters and emails from advocates on the Vision Zero Task Force, the San Jose Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, known as BPAC, and the Vision Zero Network. The feedback we received on the draft plan that was germane to the plan is summarized on this slide. Engineering for safety received the most comments. And under that area, we had be systemic, focus on 35 mile an hour plus posted roadways, build pedestrian refuge islands, do more daylighting, remove slip lanes, add quick build curb extensions, use safety as a factor for repaving, for the repaving program and schedule, add more lighting, improve accessibility, reduce speeding, do more no right turn on red, deliver quick build projects faster, and lower posted speed limits. Another group of input was focus areas, and under that we have focus on older adults, focus on people experiencing homelessness, focus near transit and busy crosswalks, focus near trails, spend more on engineering, and be more proactive about reducing injuries before they happen. A final area is on engagement. There's interest in realigning the task force instead of ending it. There's interest in more leadership at every level, and there's interest in educating drivers about roads that have been redesigned. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Lam Cruz.
Hello. Thank you all for being here today. We're really happy to have you guys here to really help us guide our prioritization for the Vision Zero Action Plan. We'd like to engage the task force and the public attending today to really help shape our priorities of the Vision Zero Action Plan. As Jesse went over, we received a lot of great feedback during the public process, and we'd love to include everything in our Vision Zero Action Plan, but we understand, there are trade-offs, and, we also want to be prepared if we aren't able to either get the funding or get it all at once. How should we prioritize our work? We want your opinion. One, if there are a limited number of resources and funding, what would you guys want DOT to focus on? Two, what initiatives would you want us to focus on the first 2 years of the action plan? This will really help us understand the importance, what's important to the task force members and the public when we go for a budget ask through the city process, as well as inform our work for the first 2 years. Secondly, I also want to mention, as part of the federal grant, we're required to identify strategy and project selections that would make us eligible for certain grants. It also will be very compelling if it includes that our task force members as well as the public has helped shape our priorities. So we have grouped feedback into 9 areas that you see here. I do want to note this is not an exhaustive list of what we'll be doing. This is added work to our current program that we would love to see and would love to hear you guys provide feedback on it. Like, for example, you won't see the speed camera program on here, which is a huge initiative for the city, but it's because it's something that we're prioritizing. So I just want to mention that this is added work and work that we would love to hear that you guys would want to see done quicker or in the first 2 years of the Vision Zero Action Plan. So we will have an activity where we would love the task force members to select their top 2 that they think is really important to them. So please also feel free to let me know if there are items on here that you feel weren't captured either through the public process or that we didn't hear previously. I'm going to go through what each of these mean. So for data sharing, This requires us to work with other agencies to get the data from them, put together an agreement, work with the city attorney or legal counsel, and aggregate the data. Being innovative, should we focus more of our time being innovative? What this means is benchmarking other agencies. I mean, we do this already, but maybe more of it, and really pilot projects and measure its effectiveness. Messaging, as you guys are many of you involved in the Slow Down campaign, should we invest and continue investing in more outreach, do more education around pedestrian safety, speeding, distracted driving, or walking in that case, or to encourage behavioral change? More, we heard the public, they want to see more. Is this more of what we're currently doing, such as, let's say, our pedestrian safety enhancement projects? Being proactive, we heard about, creating a systemic map, something similar to our priority safety corridors, but with streets that have maybe same characteristics, but not necessarily the data where it shows fatal severe injury crashes, and be more proactive in that way. Quicker, we've heard, we need to see things quicker. Is that I think it's a priority, but is that where we should be spending more of our resources on, and just getting things out immediately? We review, what this is we currently have a fatality review board. We review every single fatality, but another big data set that would be of interest is serious injuries. We receive about over 200 a year. Should we be investing our time in taking deep dives on that data set? Transparency. The good thing about some of the feedback that we received is that some of the things that were recommended we already do. We probably as a department just didn't do a really good job in terms of putting it like on our website or making it very transparent. What we could do is, put resources in and creating a dashboard, doing more frequent reporting so that the public can see what we've been delivering. Vulnerable road users, as Jesse mentioned, is a priority to us. The Walk Safe San Jose plan was completed recently, where they focus on 8, specific areas for improvements where they would love to see improvements for our vulnerable roadway users. So this is also an area that we would love to hear if that's where you guys want us to focus on. So I'll stop there and hand it back to Chair Foley.
Thank you. So we're going to start first with public comment. If you could watch the clock up here, you'll be given 2 minutes to give us some of your input, and then the task force will go through the action, through their rating of their 3 priorities. Okay. The first speaker is James Campbell. Are these all public comment?
I just want to say that public safety, in my opinion, is the most important part of just keeping the public safe. And also, one thing I've noticed when I walk on the streets is there's a lot of people. I've been hit a few times, and I think that public engagement and education is important because, and then also educating not just the drivers, but also pedestrians, because a lot of the times we have pedestrians that are walking and they don't do the eye contact rule, and I think that's one big factor of a lot of people getting hit. And then also, I think another good thing is the flashing speed or the red light cameras. Those help a lot. Most people who are from out of town, they're the ones who usually pass those, and most people who live in the area, they're going to stop at those every single time. And it just gets people to stop, and I see more people turning the corners and not looking, and because the roads are so wide, and it's kind of just like people just don't pay attention to that little person on the street, that's just trying to get across the road, and that's all.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jordan.
Jordan Moldow, District 3. I have a lot of comments, which is why I sent a letter, because I'm not going to be able to do it in 2 minutes. Speed is the cause of fatalities, and so we need to reduce speed. But people aren't just going fast just because they like to, but also the roads are subconsciously telling them to go fast. And so we need to narrow our roads, and that has to be a high priority. Part of how we do that is we need to make our projects more efficient so that we can do more of them in a short amount of time. And whenever we're redoing a road, we need to be redoing it to the highest levels of standards. This past 2 years, there's a project that was done that was really good and a project that was done that I feel like was less good. So Saratoga Ave, we did a road diet, reduced it from 3 lanes to 2, and I assume also narrowed the lanes, and that gives more room for bicyclists and pedestrians to be safe and slows down the cars. On Tully Road, that was repaved and restriped this year, and it's still just as wide, just as many lanes with the cars going just as fast. And I feel like this inconsistency between projects, it means that we're doing every single project. It has its own unique design. It's going to take a while to solidify it, and then we get different roads with different safety standards. And so I feel like one of the most important things to get into this plan is this idea of having a high standard for what we're building and doing it everywhere. I understand some roads, King Road's a good example, where there's some parts where it gets really narrow, and that might need some unique designs. Most of our roads are very wide, very fast, and we should be able to just apply the same treatments everywhere with whatever materials we have available. And if we don't have enough money, we need to figure out how to make that money stretch further. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Jeff is next.
Hi, Jeff Boissier, District 10. As far as this slide goes and feedback on your prioritization, I see more proactive and vulnerable road users. I would probably refocus this whole list to just keep it simple and say that we need to change our built environment. There's a lot of things up there about education, about enforcement, about programs for data collection, which is important, but the key thing is, since 60% of our fatalities are people that are not even in cars, that we need to focus on those people first and changing the built environment. Enforcement alone is not going to do it. Education alone is not going to do it. As Jordan said, people drive fast because the road tells them they can drive fast. Their risk feels low, so they drive faster. The only way to really change that is to change our built environment with some of the things that are mentioned up there, but there's probably a lot more. So I would pull out those things that speak to the engineering, changing the engineering, traffic calming measures that narrow streets, take out slip lanes, et cetera, et cetera. There's a long list of things we can do in that area. But do it with the focus on pedestrians, bicyclists, those that are the most vulnerable. They're the ones getting killed the most, and it's because cars are driving too fast. It's not about speeding, it's about cars driving faster than 25 miles an hour. The more we can reduce the speed, people are going to make mistakes. People are going to have crashes. They're going to use bad judgment. That's not going to change no matter what we do. What we want to do is change the environment so that when those bad judgments are made, when those crashes are done, when those mistakes are made, that the results are not catastrophic, leading to fatalities or serious injuries. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair. Oops. I didn't do Tony, right?
Hi, Blair Beekman. Nice to be here, attending the meeting. Living in San Diego the past few years. Important lessons for me in San Diego is ideas of communication. You guys are going to be, I guess this task force is retiring soon, but I hope you can continue to be considering communication, good dialogue between each other, not just between each other, but with the public. That has to be so key that we're doing this as a together project, and you can't be, people trying to do one thing here and then trying to put it off on other people as the way it works. We have to work together and be really truthful and honest what we're doing and sharing with each other. I think that's the way to build the kind of sustainable future we want to do. And to be working towards, we have problems with Vision Zero sometimes because it's supposed to be a very broad sense of how to address issues. How do we address, deep, heartfelt feelings to people who want to drive really, really fast? How do we create an encompassing community process where they don't want to do that? I wish we could do more of that here. The work I do with tech accountability is a way to do that. If we promote that and want to be honest with each other and make that a regular part of our conversation, you get everyday people trusting the process more. And then you can talk to them easier about asking them to slow down, and they can more relate to that. I know you have practices already to do that. I'm trying to offer ways to, what is the overall plan of Vision Zero is about environmental practices that we don't talk about much here, and how that can help bicycle things in the future. We don't have that conversation very often here. So, how do we really just build community harmony? What is open democracy as community harmony? I mean, the good stuff. Thank you.
Tony.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Stieber. I live in District 1, and for the past 35 years or so, I've been biking all over this area to get to my meetings, Civil Air Patrol meetings, and all kinds of other meetings I have to go to work. And my range is anywhere between East San Jose and Palo Alto. And I've seen enormous improvements in the whole bicycle infrastructure. So kudos to the Vision Zero team and to the city of San Jose. Now, there's obviously still a lot we have still to do. And the action plan, it's a nice start, but I really would like to see a lot more specifics in the action plan, more direct links between objectives, deliverables, metrics, goals, etc., just like we do in any business. I think we could use a little more rigor in that. And I know that resources can be stretched, and I understand that, but more rigor really would be very important. One thing that's I find missing from all the discussions is root cause analysis. I've done some aviation safety investigation type work, and I've also looked at one particular bicycle accident and done a complete report on that accident to try to understand the root causes. When we look at Mayor Liccardo's bicycle collision that he had, about 4 or 5 years ago, that was on a big wide road, and I never really saw any root cause analysis of why that accident happened. Visibility was good. A driver was crossing at an intersection and hit Mayor Liccardo as he was riding his bicycle on a wide road. That collision should not have happened, but human factors come in, and I don't think we pay enough attention to human factors. So what my colleagues, what Jeff and Jordan were saying earlier about wide roads that lead drivers to really speed, may I encourage you to read the book Killed by a Traffic Engineer, which is very enlightening. I just read that last week, and it's really driven me to think more along these lines. So again, lots of good work. Please take a look at other cities around the world, like Münster in Germany, which has done fantastic work on the bicycle infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Diane Solomon.
Thank you. I just want to say I second Tony, Jordan, and Jeff's comments. I appreciate how this is so much more specific. This program started out for several years as just for show, and I see, step by step, and appreciate the leadership. Messaging is weak. If you have to cut budgeting, it's weak. If I had to pick two, it'd be innovative and it'd be review, because there's a lot of near misses as well, so that even adds to it what we even don't know about, the ones that aren't even reported. And I think that's at District 6. I'm a member of the Bike Coalition Lifetime, and I'm a member of the city's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, but I may not represent myself at that, and just appreciate the specificity, and I sent a letter in about my comments on the plan, and just appreciate being able to speak to you all, and thank you for your service on this.
Thanks, Diane. Gail.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I've been coming to these meetings now for a couple of years, and I'm the spokesperson or representative for our unhoused community. I want to thank you for continuing including them in the vulnerable roads. But like Diana said, the messaging is not good. Our unhoused community is not getting a lot of the messaging that's going on. I've talked to a lot of unhoused. I know sometimes they're bicycling at night because they're out at night. We really need to include them in everything. We really need to be doing better outreach and going outside to the camps and talking to the unhoused people and making sure that their lives are going to be continuing and not being killed on the road. And it just breaks my heart every time I hear that. So, but thank you for at least, and 5 KSI killed or seriously injured. Is that what that means, Jess? Ooh, okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gail. Last speaker is Chris Giangreco. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm the vice president of the Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association, immediately west of Santana Row. Our neighborhood is bounded by both boulevards, the freeway and San Tomas Expressway. I've lived along that Stevens Creek corridor all my life. I've witnessed all the changes that have happened on the corridor. I personally reviewed the engineering drawings for the boulevard upgrade and met with Jessica Zank's staff online to review the drawings. So I'm well versed in the boulevard activity. I was at Tony and Alba's when Victim 38 happened about a month and a half ago. I saw the emergency personnel pumping the chest in the roadway, and when the ambulance took off, it took off instead of hanging a U-turn at the Goodyear driveway or at the Hanson roundabout, it mistakenly went through the neighborhood, adding a minute to the response time. Why that is, my guess would be that they were relying on virtual technology that had not been upgraded to reflect the fact that they could not access Winchester Boulevard from Hanson, adding critical time. There's a lot of things that need to be looked at here. And in the innovation zone that the city spent probably $500,000 to implement in the Valley Fair Santana Row area, we see little to no enforcement in this highest pedestrian crossing area in the holiday traffic scenarios. It's a recipe for disaster, and it's never really been addressed. I review the holiday traffic annually. I'm out there reviewing the roadway, and there's little to no enforcement when gridlocking, intersection blocking, crosswalk blocking is the order of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of the public comments. Your comments are helpful, and some of them were right on point with what I'm thinking. I'm in District 9, and I have two streets, actually three streets, that went through traffic calming not that long ago where we took a lane out. Hillsdale Avenue and Pearl Avenue and Branham. And the drivers are still furious about that. But what it does, and what some of the public commenters had to say, is the built environment, that narrows the road. It makes people more nervous about driving, so they slow down a little bit, which is the goal. That's the goal, and we do have protected bike lanes. I'm not sure how protected they are with those plastic sticks, but it gives the illusion that they're protected, and there is some separation from the bicyclists and the drivers, but it's really that narrowing of the road that slows everybody down. I drive home on Bird, and Bird is such a narrow street. Everyone slows down on Bird because you can't, if you go fast, you're gonna hit a house or a car that's parked along the way. So there's a lot to that narrowing and taking out lanes and making it more difficult for drivers to speed. But so thank you for that. I share a lot of your thoughts in that regard. Lamb, do you want to lead us through the exercise?
Sure. So we have two easels right here with the 9 initiatives that I had mentioned. They're grouped in categories. The first category really being, messaging, engagement. The second category around data analysis, and this standalone one focused on engineering built environment, as many of you have alluded to. But what we are looking for is for the task force members, they're going to get 2 stickers to really put what is important to them. What would they love to see the first 2 years? And keep in mind that this is not all. These aren't equal, and also there is overlapping work. But just what stands out to you guys that is important to you?
And then, once we're done with this, what are we going to do with the data this afternoon?
We'd just love to hear everybody's feedback and why they picked it. It would really help us inform us of, how do we want to shape our prioritization, and it'll really feed into the Vision Zero action plan. So your guys' feedback will be very, very valuable.
Great, thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, in the review of serious injuries, is that where root cause analysis could take place?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
The review of serious injuries, cause analysis?
Yeah, so we would do, right now we have a fatality review board where we review individual fatalities and we make recommendations around it, where we would leverage, say, development projects, pavement projects, capital projects, or even do minor signage improvements, or whatever's in our control in terms of budget. If this was selected, it would be something we would prioritize and do a deep analysis on our serious injuries and probably look at, the last couple of years and make it a pretty comprehensive project.
Any other questions on process? Okay, why don't you take a few minutes and put your stars up?
I have a tie for number 2, so this isn't fair. I'm sorry I was late.
It's okay, you were
I was waiting to see if my pumpkin was going to win. Did it? Got honorable mention. I got it, yeah. Mary May.
Has everyone, all the task force members voted? Then why don't we take a look at the numbers? First of all, I'm going to tell you where I voted, which probably isn't a mystery because I announced it ahead of time. I sort of signaled what I was going to do, not that it influenced anybody, but and that is more and quicker, because I believe that this is all about infrastructure. That's the one way, one thing we can do to really influence change. When I think about some of the fatalities, it has to do with lack of lighting, lack of crosswalks, things that we should be doing already and we need to prioritize. So that's why I put my star at more and quicker. This is where the task force members put their stickers. The number one area was more. That got 8 stars, followed by messaging, which received 6. Then vulnerable users had 5, and quicker had 5. And so what I'd like to do, since I've mentioned why I did it, I'd like to hear from the task force members as to where they voted and why. Would that be helpful for you?
Yeah, also feel free if you think that there's something that's even missing here that you didn't see in our draft, as well as this additional deliverables, please feel free. Would love to hear from you.
Great. So who'd like to be first and share with us? Please, Lieutenant.
I'll start. First thing that's missing is, I think everybody can guess, enforcement. We can all agree you can make all the changes in the world to the roadway, and if people don't believe there's consequences to their bad driving behavior, then they're going to drive poorly. And I think that's a necessary entity for that. That being said, even though it wasn't on there, I picked messaging because I think education falls in line a lot with what we do. And oftentimes even my officers give out warnings versus a ticket, and sometimes it helps. But ultimately, at the end of the day, enforcement is a much needed necessity to change drivers' behavior.
Thank you.
Sure, I'm happy to go next. I fell in line very much with more. I kind of put more and quicker together and was just lazy, so I just put one on more. And then I thought messaging was appropriate, not only from an education perspective, but I think volume and rapidity, and also, for lack of a better word, in your face. I think some of the messaging I have seen like attached to the signs along the roads. I don't think people are really paying too much attention to it. So I think more audio and video type messaging that's more in your face more often, along with the education and the implications of how you can ruin someone else's life and their families and yours, and ruining and killing someone, is definitely needs to be much more in the face of the community.
Vice Chair, would you like to weigh in?
Sure, I agree with our chair here. I put my star on more, and we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that, but we can always do a little bit catch up. But again, the education is huge, because I've gone out there, and I'm all over the city, from the Almaden Valley all the way to District 7 and even the South. People are not educated to the fact that most insurance only cover up to about $300,000 medically. They need to be visible. They need to get off the phone and pay attention to traffic, because people, I think in their head is that if someone hit me, I'll be rich. One, not if you're dead, because your family will spend it for you. 2, if you can become a quadriplegic or paraplegic, you suffer the rest of your life. And 3, you are hurting the people whom the one that causes the accident, or you're making the mistakes. It affects everyone's lives, and I think it's very important that we do messaging as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina.
So, yeah, not to copy fully. Number one, quicker. I'm always saying we're not fast enough. And then I tied for 2, but I only had 1 star. So
I want more, but I want innovative. So I want more plus innovative. And the others are also important. I'm kind of disagreeing with all the focus on messaging as putting our money there, because there is not really evidence that messaging is changing behavior. So I think it's all about the engineering. If we actually want to save lives, we can add the messaging in later, but we really have to focus on the engineering. That's my opinion.
Candidates.
So this might be the analyst in me. I apologize for introducing some biases here, but I always get really excited with data sharing, because when you have a strong data set, you're going to be able to highlight some areas that are hot zones, and you can potentially focus on those areas which causes accidents or fatalities again and again, and you could apply real change and make a real impact. So I, again, would say data sharing. And then also, I am a fan of transparency, because when, so here at the medical examiner's office, we do have a death data dashboard that's transparent with the public, and the public holds us accountable for that information. So I think that's really important as well.
Thank you. Joe.
Quickly, quicker is at the top. And I've seen evidence that if you do it quick build on Saratoga Avenue, one evidence, it's effective, quicker. Second, from an equity standpoint, in the fact that we still, I believe, don't truly understand the root cause of pedestrian safety yet. I'm very intrigued about Walk Safe San Jose pedestrian safety planning as a holistic approach to figure out how we build environments that are safer for our pedestrians, and at the same time focus on those that are vulnerable. And what I would add to those two lists there, unhoused and older adults, is our young children.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Representing Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services, I absolutely had to vote for the vulnerable populations, and I appreciate you adding our young people, because I know that's why we, in the east side on White Road, why we have some interventions now, because we lost a young woman who was on her cell phone in a crosswalk. My other vote was for messaging. I do believe as we move towards changing the built environment, we have to have messaging until that built environment actually changes. We need to create a campaign, right, which kind of the campaign we have, but we need to tie sort of the messaging and the awareness and the behavior change to the interventions and the built environment changes people are going to see. But again, until our built environment changes, we have to keep up with messaging.
Cupid.
Goodness, how do you pick from your children? Right? That's what I was thinking. So I had to take it back a step, and I said, well, what are we basing this prioritization off? What are our values, right? How does the built environment and the infrastructure serve the people? Starting from there, I said number one was going to be vulnerable road users. I question road users because there are vulnerable people who are affected by the users on the road. But if a lot of the individuals who are being hit are individuals who are not in cars, then I'm like, well, those individuals need to be sure that the individuals who are within the city are able to use the infrastructure in and of itself. We don't serve cars, cars serve us. They serve people. So that was my first concern, and from the housing perspective and the vulnerable populations, especially those unhoused, the built environment is important. And then the second one was going to be, it's actually two, data sharing and more. We always want the traffic calming now, but I'm also someone who's data driven. So I'm like, well, why are we doing what we're doing? Let's be sure, let's be clear with that. What information do we have? And so that's the reason why. And then after I had my conversation with these individuals over here, Killed by a Traffic Engineer is one of the books you should look at. It has a huge intersection between vulnerable communities, the impact of highway infrastructure for disadvantaging communities, and making communities unwalkable. So
I'm going to flow with that theme because none of these things are going to happen in a vacuum. They all kind of work with each other. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you do quick builds, you're going to have to do a little bit of that data analysis to where you're going to do it. You're going to have to consider vulnerable road users and the areas, right, that you're going to do quick builds. When you do more traffic calming, you're going to have to, you know, do some of that data sharing as well. So all these things, they kind of like play with each other. For sure, me, it was more and it was quicker. We spent decades doing innovative stuff around making it easy to get on a highway, express lanes, expressways through, vulnerable communities. We need to have that same energy in response to that. And we need to, use these two buckets, but also meet all of these other priorities as well. Yep.
I added particularly messaging, because again, as we move towards a shift in the built environment, obviously, as Andrea indicated, you got to continue to message, get the word out to people. You got to educate constantly. It may not have a direct impact immediately, but as you move towards that process, I see it as having impact. You've always got to market and educate, and let people know people are constantly changing that come in and out of a community, right? And so they've got to understand what your focus is. And then I looked at innovative as we continue to look at pilot new types of perhaps traffic calming devices or systems in streets to affect the built environment again, which ultimately, by having probably reduced road widths and trying to find a balance between the ability for public safety to respond effectively and quickly to address what we have to, how do we do that, again, with innovation?
Anyone else? Yes. Harry.
Thank you. I would just say before I start that I do manage the engineering organization that manages the expressways here in Santa Clara County, as well as about 600 miles of roads in addition to that. So, my comments certainly reflect the view of someone who may have maybe called a traffic engineer, and I understand what that means at this point. And so, take it with a grain of salt, but I feel very strongly, considering that how large the city is, with about 1 million residents, so that, I'm just doing off the cuff, that's probably about 10 million trips a day in your city. So your network is carrying about 10 million trips, and there's a tremendous amount of information that you can derive from that data. And I put both my stickers on review. And the reason why I mentioned review is because, first of all, those 220 serious injuries actually portend where you're going to have probably fatalities next year. Now, they probably are already locations where you have those 50 fatalities, probably. But I feel strongly that you have to analyze the causation and then really focus on the installation to make sure that the installation of the device or devices that you're installing in an intersection are designed specifically to end the behavior that was the causation of that accident. You have to study it before and you have to study it after. And when you study it after, you have to prove to yourself that it effectively changed that behavior. If it did not change that behavior, you have to stop installing those devices. And, again, my organization struggles with this too, so I just will lay that out. And I think with the amount of infrastructure you have in monitoring traffic, meaning traffic loops, traffic cameras, speed sensors, and all the cameras you have on your network, I think the information is there, and I think you could almost start to predict where your next hotspot is going to be, or as my colleague here said, where those heat maps are, where those speeds are high, what parts of the network speeds are increasing. Is it all of Winchester, or is it just Winchester between 280 and Hamilton? And if that is it, then you don't have to spend the money on all of Winchester. You don't have to spend the money on all of Hillsdale. Because, some of the installations, they're very expensive, and they're very expensive to maintain, especially these temporary installations. Permanent installations are concrete, and you don't have to do anything to them. But all this plastic that's being put in the road, you have to replace it constantly. So, I put, well, as I said, both my stars on review. I think it got no other votes, but I'm going to make my pitch. And I appreciate your time listening.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any other comments from, yes?
Thank you. I put mine on innovative and messaging. And the innovative, I was thinking at a two-pronged approach. One, the messaging and humanizing the victims. I think that would say a lot for the drivers who are speeding. I think that's really helpful to be able to put a face to the name and think about that as you know, doing what you're not supposed to be doing. The other piece is innovative, and I was thinking at the same time of more, kind of to drill down what you were saying, Harry, last, is we know where most of this is happening, and how do we use our best thinking and knowledge from other areas where it's working to add more safety to our roads. But the biggest comment I'll make is I wonder how this activity would go and what our biggest priorities would be if we redid the stickering now. I think there's value to seeing what almost the pretest is and seeing afterwards, after hearing from everybody. I think that if we're really gonna get a true prioritization, we should maybe think about that.
That's interesting. So let's do that. We probably don't have stickers that we could do, but if everyone could then just put a check mark, having heard all of the discussion, has your opinion changed? How about that? Would that be helpful to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
In addition to, or if you could change, put a check mark?
Either if you want to stay, if you're committed to the ones you chose, go there. If you were swayed by a statement that was made, put your check mark.
One check mark.
One check mark. So how many task force people, anybody counting heads here?
I think we have 15.
I wish I had multicolored pens, I don't. Or sticky notes. Do we have sticky tabs even? We could use those.
Too funny. What if we're not changing? Just stay.
Just stay.
How about I like all of them? Can I just have them all? It's too hard to pick.
Well, I don't know. You should. I feel like since you have a vote, you should use it.
What's that?
You have a vote. You should use it.
Double down.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean is only one check mark?
Yeah, I guess so. It sounds like we're trying to do. I think there's 15 people on the list here.
I'll just go put a check mark where I put my star.
Yeah. There should be a total of 16.
persuasive certain individuals were in making their arguments, particularly Harry, because review went from 2 to 5, Moore went down to 4. I can't see some of the others, but there was some movement. So we listened to what everybody had to say, and I think that's really, really useful. Lamb, yes, go ahead. Oh, that's true. Never mind.
So it's about the same.
It's about. I'm not the data geek here, obviously. Still, we have 5 people who voted on the review. And truly, I think all of these things go together.
And remember, I'll just say, the previous one, we had 2 votes. So you have
and they
to
were yours.
No. I
Oh.
mean, each of us had 2 votes.
Yes.
So the aggregate number of votes was twice. So when you compare a 6 up there to a...
You won, we got it.
No, I mean, like, just the top one. There were... We had 40 votes, and we went to 20 votes on the second go-round.
Yes.
Right. So
You're right.
If we had 40.
Yes.
Undemocratic. Well...
Okay,
There's
so
some suppression going on the
I
side.
think this exercise was really helpful, but I need to turn to Lamb and Jesse. Does this give you the information you need to help go forward on the framework?
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. I think engineering is a big piece of it that I've heard, from the public as well as the task force members in terms of more and quicker. One of the things I want to mention in that piece is, as part of this new action plan, I think Jesse had mentioned, we've doubled the priority safety corridors, which means when we're working with pavement, we're doing more aggressive treatment on our priority safety corridors. So when those lists comes out, it's almost, there's more for us to select to do more aggressive treatment. The other thing I do want to mention, and this does help shape, because what I would have done if I didn't know this is, you guys, we got to put together a dashboard, because we heard people say they want us to report out, which I still think it's important, but it sounds like there's a lot of desire for us to do deeper data analysis and help us strategize and focus on that piece. Although we still intend to do the dashboard, that's not something I'm going to do January 1st. It's hey, let's get together and strategize and see what we could do better in terms of understanding the data. So I think that really helped us think about how we're going to be tackling and what we want to focus on the first couple years. When we go for a budget ask, where are our resources going to be?
Okay.
best?
So going forward on this, this is just a framework, but we're going to see more detail in it when it comes back as the draft plan. And I refer to it as a draft because it won't be a formal plan until the city council adopts it. But we will approve it or adopt it and then have it sent to city council for formal approval.
Yes.
Right? So in line with that, is there anything in the framework that you're looking at that you'd like to see more of, moved around? For example, one thing I was thinking of is that when I look at, and this applies to all of the categories, but I just made my note on number 2, center data analytics report metrics. I'd love to see more of an action statement with that. That's the heading, but what goes with that and what's below it. So having the data and the detail, and I know there's going to be a lot of budget implications in a lot of these things, so I don't know what level of budgeting you'll be able to bring, but maybe an idea of where the funds might be available. That might be a better way of approaching it, because each project is expensive, each project requires resources, and it's not just the budget resources for building the quick build, for example, or the messaging, it's staff resources too. And staff is really also involved in the deployment of the 33 speed cameras that we're working on right now, and that we worked really hard to get that legislation passed, we want to make sure we implement it in time to have the 5-year pilot program go forward. So, but none of these things are in a vacuum. You're asked to do a lot of things at the same time. So I guess I'd like to see, when the plan comes back to us, a resource analysis. Do you need more staffing? Do you need, what other funding might you need? Because January, that's about when, or December, January, we're gonna start looking at the budget, and that would be a good time to have those things under consideration for the budget. And the other thing that I was thinking about is, you know, I look at the 5 categories, and I know we use these 5 categories in that order, because that's how the original plan was. But I look at these and think, should that be the order that we want these to be presented? It's not 1 through 5 doesn't mean we're focusing on only 1 and then 5 is last. It means we're focusing on them all in different ways, but there's no priority as to the numbering.
Yeah, there's
Right.
no order of priority.
Okay. The other thing I would add is under the vulnerable road users. I kind of agree with the terminology of that they're not road users. These are actually, well, the bicyclists are using the road, but the pedestrians are walking. They're not, so I don't know a better way of referring to them. Maybe that is the best way, but I would like to call out more clearly who that is, such as older adults, disabled, children, unhoused, rather than just saying vulnerable road users. Shoot, I'm a vulnerable road user because I walk slowly across an intersection. But you wouldn't, to look at me, you wouldn't think I'm a vulnerable road user, but I am. So, plus I'm paranoid on the street when I'm walking. And who said make eye contact with people? I make eye contact with every driver who goes by me. So does anyone have any comments like that you'd like us, or if you do and you don't, or aren't prepared to make those comments now, please email them to staff so that we can incorporate them. Joe?
I have one on number 4, just a question of clarification on the legislative alignment of the bills and the impact, particularly timing. And I point out AB 413, daylight crosswalks, and the lower speed limit, AB 43. And I know that the punitive part of the daylighting kicks in 2025, I believe. Is there a movement to align in the city our build environment to enforce that with the legislative timing? And similarly, is there an opportunity with the business activity lower speed limit, AB 43, is there an opportunity as we build out new business activity along our roads, like urban villages, and since this is a 5-year plan, is there an opportunity to align that legislation to reduce speed limits on some of our roadways, like expressways, that are near or adjacent to urban villages? So I'm just looking for some clarity on how we align our plan with the legislative environment.
Thank you, John. So, Director of Transportation, the quick answer is yes, but it really, that's an answer to, are we aligning physical infrastructure changes that are required or allowed by legislation? So, but it depends. Like, for instance, speed limit, when we had a chance to actually make speed limit reductions down to 20 miles an hour in the roadways that would qualify, we did it. There was very few of them that qualified. On the other side of that, the daylighting, we probably have 100,000 locations of those intersections and curb lines that we just will not be able to completely comply with that, but we have a plan to actually start doing so. Yeah. So it's going to take a while for that sort of thing because the size of the city and the numbers of those potential locations is just kind of overwhelming number. I'll let Harry talk about speed limits on expressways.
I'm going to look a little bit at Jesse and Lamb to help me with this. My understanding is that that legislation passed, but the rulemaking through the rulemaking that we use through the California CTC, you know, the CTC. I'm not too close to that, but I understand those rules aren't in place yet for us to start applying that 5 mile an hour reduction. Do you have any background on that? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, Noth, our traffic, he's not here today, our county manager of traffic and operations has been keeping me up to date on that, but I'm not an expert.
Just recently, as of, I want to say June 30th, we're able to do it, but it does require council action in terms of, say, a safety corridor. We would, in our case, the city would need to go to city council to adopt these to be able to drop it an additional 5. And, you know, that's part of our work plan and something we'll also be doing next year.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I think that's it then.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
comment question somewhere in there, it's hybrid. I reviewed this version of like a framework kind of the Vision Zero before, and I think there was like question marks with some of the metrics and deliverables because you guys were still working on it. So I really like to see, I like that this version has like quantifiable, like even numbers, especially with number 4. It's a lot better than what I reviewed earlier this month. But I would like a little more, just a little more exploring about what kind of deliverables we can have for Key Area 1. I think there's a little more meat there that we can you know, chew on and figure out. Provide interpreters at a community meeting for engagement when needed. I think that kind of is in line with, you know, going to these, you know, these neighborhoods, these communities of color. But it's not just interpreters, right? That's just like one communication outreach strategy, right? To have that, obviously you need to have food, you need to have all these different things. You need to have people that trust you. I mean, they're not going to trust you right away. That's the reality. But you need to have someone that can guide you through that process. So, yeah. But my request would just be a little more details in terms of the deliverables for the Key Area 1.
Just a quick thing that can be easily done is that the Walk Safe San Jose recommendations, there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of different types of them, and we could just describe them more. So.
Great. Anything else? Okay, we've done good work today. You should all be proud of your efforts today. I am. I feel we're really moving positively towards the conclusion we need to be before, so that we can then be proactive, more proactive than we already are. And again, this work is not stopped. This work is continuing on. I know the Department of Transportation gets calls from my team all the time. Can you take a look at this street? Can you slow it down? Can you put in speed bumps? All these things to make the streets safer. Can we clear the bike lanes with garbage cans and other things? So we're always listening to things that we can do to make our streets safe for all who use them. And enforcement is one of the 3 things we need. Enforcement, education, infrastructure. With that, we have time for public comment, and then we will adjourn.
There's one more slide.
Oh, okay.
The timeline for completing the 2025 Vision Zero Action Plan is shown here. Today we have reviewed and discussed public feedback towards shaping priorities and are providing this timeline update. On Tuesday next week, on October 29, we are going to City Council to present the Speed Safety System Pilot Program Use Policy and Impact Report. And then on Monday, November 4th, we will be going to the Transportation and Environment Committee to share the public feedback and discussion we reviewed here today. Then there will be, the date isn't finalized, another Vision Zero Task Force meeting to review and approve the final 2025 Vision Zero Action Plan. And then in February 2025, we'll take it to City Council to recommend adoption of the final 2025 Vision Zero Action Plan. The timeline will still be completed before April 2025, which is the deadline to have a compliant action plan for the next federal funding opportunity.
Great. Thank you. With that, let's move to public comment. Again, you will have 2 minutes. Chris.
So living in the area that I live in, I can say that as I told you, I've reviewed the engineering drawings for the boulevard upgrade, walked directly through those in a meeting virtually with the engineering staff. My user experience is that it's not the narrowing of the roadways that is reducing the speeds, it's the added congestion. Where there is no congestion, the speeds will remain. You could drop my 35-mile-an-hour stretch of Stevens Creek between Henry or Cypress and Winchester by an additional 5 miles an hour, calling it a 30-mile-an-hour stretch. And it will not reduce speeds. I can pretty much guarantee it. If there's no congestion, the people will retain the same speed, especially if they're used to it. The city spent $500,000 or more declaring that area an innovation zone. It's been an innovation zone of nothing. Wasted taxpayer money as far as I'm concerned. We need to be able to see the improvements that red light cameras, if the city has to engage with the state legislature to bring red light cameras, upgrade anti-gridlocking law, have a holiday traffic management plan that prioritizes pedestrian safety, and have our neighborhood be part of that discussion. We begged the city for years to be part of an active holiday management traffic plan, and it hasn't happened yet. We've never seen any documentation as to a holiday traffic management plan. We're 4 weeks away from the big hit that we're gonna take in this area, and enforcement, additional enforcement is key. If there's no police presence there, people will continue to block the sidewalks, run the red lights, make illegal turns, all of it, putting life safety at risk.
Thank you. Blair.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I wanted to kind of give an overall view of what I think we think about a Vision Zero. It is a more idealistic view, but I think that has been part of the issue and problem with Vision Zero. We want to be talking about its idealism, which is very broad and hopeful, that has a real specific focus on environment and community harmony, I think, is its 2 major factors. And from there, we define policy. And then, therefore, when a person just spoke, to get into the actual needs of law enforcement and technology, that conversation then starts to become a little more difficult. And I'm just trying to remind ourselves, as this group will be ending, the importance of the really idealistic purpose of Vision Zero, and for ourselves to want to work towards those goals. In District 10 of San Jose, they're starting a new program of having police being able to give statistics over to the councilperson office there. A really good idea. But it has to be really questioned how those statistics are going to be used. Well, I mean, we are now counting our homeless as part of our death statistics where we didn't before. So that's going to skew the statistical data. And we haven't been fully clear how to do that well yet and to acknowledge that. We're learning to, and it's important we do. And there we can make our better decisions as a full community process of our choices. And I'm afraid, that we may hurt that if we don't be steady on just an overall idealism of just best practices and wanting to consider community harmony. How do we do that? Community harmony. I think it's through more openness and accountability practices with tech. As I've said, good luck how we work on this in the future. Thanks for your time.
Jordan.
The county has a draft active transportation plan that is currently on their website, and they're seeking public feedback. The active transportation plan is going to cover the county expressways and other county roads that are in unincorporated territory. This might be our best chance for like a decade to change the trajectory of how we're looking at safety on our county expressways. So I'd really encourage the DOT staff and maybe individual council offices to give public comments on that active transportation plan while they're seeking that feedback. For the first time, they're open to putting in like actual protected bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure on county expressways and maybe other changes as well. So please comment on that to make sure it's as good as possible. For the speed cameras coming to council on Tuesday, so one lesser known part of the authorizing legislation is that we can only give tickets to people who are going 11 miles an hour or more over the speed limit. So there's a lot of speeders that the speed cameras are not going to do anything about. And I think that's why this AB 43 legislation, which the second part of it went into effect in July, that's so important. So if the council could consider like really accelerating our plans on utilizing AB 43 to its full extent, we can reduce speed limits on some roads by 5 miles an hour and on some roads by 10 miles an hour. Speed limits aren't the determining factor in speed, the road width is, but everything helps. And combined with the speed cameras, if we lower the speed limits, then we can enforce a little more strictly on the speeds. So I hope we can do that even before this action plan is finalized, but maybe as part of the speed camera rollout. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony.
So I was inspired by Blair just to make a comment about where Vision Zero fits into a much bigger picture of where San Jose can go. I think of social capital. We build social capital by having people interact more on the streets, by more people biking, by more pedestrians, by cops on bicycles, and of course, like in the old days, we had cops on horses. But you know, if we look at the Blue Zone report that came out on San Jose too, that's extremely inspiring. San Jose is very flat. It's ideal for biking. And Vision Zero really fits into our climate goals and fits in, and we've got our goals of reducing accidents and trauma in families. Now, I'm not your target audience for all this. I've ridden my bicycle everywhere from the snows north of the Arctic Circle to the Sahel of West Africa, and I ride my bike almost anywhere. But I would like people who are feeling vulnerable to ride their bikes, to have kids ride their bikes to schools. Do not parents be afraid that the kids will be run over by the mass rabble of parents driving their kids to school every day. I'd like to see council members be able to ride their bikes and feel safe to work every day. I would like to see pedestrian zones. I'd like to see play streets and other innovations more like roundabouts. Look at what we have in other countries. I just spent 2 weeks earlier this year in Germany, in Münster, which is the bicycle capital of Germany. It was an amazing experience. We do everything by bike, whether ferrying my grandkids in a cargo bike to their preschool, to their nursery every day, right through the city center. Took me about 20 minutes to get from one end of the city to the other. It was just wonderful. So I want to say, keep up the good work. Please be innovative. Please try new things. City of Cupertino does a great job there. And I think, as Harry Freitas was saying, review, and look at the data and do root cause analysis. Thank you very much for your good work.
Great, thank you. Jeff, you have the last word.
Pressure's on. Okay. First of all, I want to say thanks for letting us, the public, engage earlier in the meeting. I thought that was really great. I've been attending several of these meetings, and I just want to say that today's meeting, I thought, probably because of the subject matter, but it was the most collaborative, the most informative and engaged, I think, that I've seen, and I really loved being a part of that and being able to see that. So, but I'm going to read a couple of statements that I had prepared before the meeting started. So, first comment, one, I'd like to make one more plea to not disband the task force, but to reinforce and restructure the task force to have greater authority and responsibility to hold those accountable within the city government for, one, guiding through leadership, and two, making our streets safer. primarily through improvements to our built environment as quickly and effectively as possible. My concern is that the disbandment, even with the heightened visibility through the Transportation and Environment Committee, will not be enough to curtail the current trend of increasing deaths on our city streets. Second comment, I'd like to acknowledge that the city's made significant progress since adopting Vision Zero with more bike lanes, leading pedestrian intervals citywide, and other safety improvements. But the city is still falling short of its commitment to eliminate deaths and serious injuries. Residents are not just feeling unsafe, they are unsafe. I have photo and video documentation of cars driving in bike lanes that I use near my home nearly every day, and I don't feel safe. 60% of annual fatalities are pedestrians and bicyclists. I want to reinforce that the upcoming action plan revision has as its North Star that the #1 priority is to engineer a safety-first environment for the most vulnerable users of our city streets, pedestrians and bicyclists. Everything else is secondary if we are truly moving toward an equitable transportation system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate all the public comment. I appreciate the involvement of the task force. I agree that there was a lot of good energy and input at this particular meeting. It was very valuable to all of us, I think. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you at the next meeting. And if it's after the holidays, have a nice holiday.